So John Samuel just asked this question about two people in his life who he really respects and admires, who have chosen to remain unvaccinated. And he, like many of us do, see getting vaccinated as being an acknowledgement that we're interconnected, and of a gesture of solidarity with others, and a gesture of, I want to take care of you. Um, and we've been talking a lot about belonging to the whole, and the fact that we are all interdependent and interconnected. We're not separate. And so how do we even begin to approach this? And as he mentioned, and is very true, as is very true, this is such a contentious subject right now. So my thoughts on it are this. I mean, we are definitely all interconnected, and this having a global pandemic has really showed us how true that is on a bodily level. And also, we each are endowed with this right, this privilege to be autonomous, and to have a certain territory over which one is sovereign. And the primary territory over which one is sovereign, and most basic human right, is your own body, right? The ability to make decisions about your own body, what you put in it and what you don't. And we live in a world where there's a lot. I really, really, really understand. There are many reasons why people don't get vaccinated, and I understand the distrust. When I started having all these health problems, and I started investigating into what I was eating. So many things that I ate my whole life, that my parents gave me, that at school they gave me. These people I trusted as a little person gave me this food that I started to learn, as I investigated more, had all these terrible things in the food. And the process between the food, before the food got to me in this plastic package or whatever it was in, all these terrible things happen, and to other beings, and whatever. It's like, and you learn that sometimes you have awakenings where you learn, hey, I was given this thing, I wasn't totally consensual, actually, and now I'm suffering, and this probably played some role. I also learned I got put on birth control when I was like 14. That also probably had some major ramifications for my hormonal system that just no one was talking to me about, and I was very young. And so as I started to backtrack all of this, and also spending some time in hospitals, and working with women giving birth as a birth doula, I just started to see that there are all these things that we take for granted, and we're like, oh, this is good, and this is health, and this is healthy, that with more education, I realized maybe isn't. And that I just trusted these authorities to do things a certain way, and that actually to be healthy and to be autonomous and to really respect my own body, sometimes I have to stand up and say the mainstream culture, I say no to. So that being said, I actually really, really understand that there is a lack of trust for many people in the greater mainstream health advocacy, or advocacy is the wrong word, sorry, but it just kind of like the powers that be, that say this is healthy for us. I think that having some concern or some doubt and wanting, having some lack of trust there, I get. There are lots of reasons why there are some people who their doctor really actually says you shouldn't get the vaccine. That does happen. There's rare cases where, for whatever precondition somebody has, they can't do it. And John Samuel, I also have some people in my life, including some people who've been my yoga teachers, and other people I really respect, who are not just, I personally choose to be unvaccinated. They're anti-vax. They're like actually really, yeah. And it's been confusing, and it's been challenging. I chose to get vaccinated. It was like not even, I didn't think about it twice, because I have elder relatives, and I have people that I really love who I want to be close with. I want to give them support and I want their support, and I'm here to be with them. And it just, I didn't think twice. I was going to get that vaccine so that I could spend time with them, and because that was aligned with what they were doing and their values. So I didn't go on some big protracted journey about figuring out whether I was going to get mine, because it just felt answered for me. But I'm a pretty radical person when it comes to, and I'm pretty counterculture, and I like really get standing outside of the mainstream and questioning what the mainstream tells us to do. I fall down, I think, on the same side as you do in terms of like, I just see that we're all interconnected and this is the right thing for right now. And if we lived in a very different world, or if I just like went to go live out in nature and meditate all day long, I wouldn't need the vaccine, and then nobody else would need me to get it because I'd just be doing this thing. But I don't. I was born into this time where we live in this complicated society, and this complicated society, it's like we're like one big organism as humans, and this particular version of the organism, which we are as a human race, kind of requires vaccines. Like, to me, it's like if I were to choose to be unvaccinated, I would think about really removing myself, or maybe, I don't know, go find a community of unvaccinated people. It's a pretty radical thing to choose to do when you think about how we are all interconnected. It's a radical choice not to get vaccinated. So then to kind of like remain in this contemporary society, and it's sort of like you got to choose, something that my teachers say a lot is, if you give up, if you really want to get, if you give up everything, you'll get everything, but you can't try to hang on to one thing and the other. And I think that's what I feel like is happening with a lot of the anti-vax stuff. It's like, I actually agree with you all in theory. We probably shouldn't need to pump these things into our bodies, but in reality, we live in this world. The same way, I've talked all about that diet stuff. I'm not a purist. Sometimes I had tacos yesterday from a taco truck because that's what we were having for lunch, and I was hungry and I ate. Most of the time, I'm much more intentional about my food and where it comes from, but sometimes I just eat, and I accept that I live in this modern world, and I'm not a huntress out in the woods who can be unvaccinated and be having purely, completely ethically, beautifully healthy food. I just don't live in that world. That wasn't the one I was born to. And so we make these compromises to inhabit these worlds. Or if we don't want to compromise, we have to go and forge a new world, or go find a world where we can be with others who will do that with us. And so, I mean, I hope I'm actually answering your question, but oh, good. Okay, and Lee's got a response, which you should read too. And I'm going to wrap this up now. But I think for me, and I think that this is the heart of your question, is about how to even think about these people. Do we need to cut them off, or do we need to, think of them as the enemy or something like that? And I would say no. No, though we can also have our critiques, and we can also have our opinions about them, and we can choose to hold our own boundaries. It's not our job to enforce our values or our way onto anybody. Our job is to be in charge of our own autonomous space. And if somebody else being unvaccinated could hurt me and my loved ones, I'm going to have to create some distance there. But we can do that with love. And we can do it, again, not from a sense of I am superior to you and you're an idiot, or I'm more morally superior to you and you are immoral. It's just, I'm in charge of me and my world, and your actions are affecting me in my world. So that's why. The reason always comes from our own story and our own self, because we can never get inside of, and know, and we're not in charge of that person's decisions.